The war didn't end with a victory parade. It ended with silence. A kind of silence, so deep it felt like the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting to see if anyone was left to exhale. I stood alone on the broken ridge of what used to be a city, my boots sinking into ash and shattered alloy. Above me, the sky glowed a dull violet, scarred by orbital bombardments that had never fully faded. Below, the battlefield stretched endlessly, littered with the remains of machines, ships, and soldiers from a dozen different species. And among them, humans. My people. Or what was left of us. I adjusted the cracked visor of my helmet and exhaled slowly. The war had lasted 11 years. 11 years of fighting an enemy we barely understood, an empire that had spanned hundreds of star systems long before humanity ever left its cradle. We weren't supposed to win, but we did. At least, that's what the council declared. Victory, they called it. I called it survival. A distant hum cut through the silence. I stiffened instantly, my hand moving to the rifle slung across my back. The weapon was old, battered, and running on its last power cell, but it still worked. It had to. The hum grew louder, sharper. A ship. I turned toward the sky as a sleek, angular craft descended through the violet haze. It wasn't human. The design was too fluid, too precise. It hovered silently for a moment before settling onto the broken ground 100 meters away. The hatch opened with a soft hiss, and she stepped out. I'd seen her kind before, on the battlefield. Tall, graceful, deadly. Her species, the Kalari, had been among the most feared warriors in the enemy empire. They moved like shadows and struck like lightning. Their armor was grown, not forged, smooth, dark, and almost alive. And she wore it like a second skin. My grip tightened on the rifle. She walked toward me, without hesitation. No weapon drawn. No escort. Just her. That alone told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't here to fight. She was here for me. I raised the rifle anyway. Stop right there. I called out, my voice echoing through the ruined landscape. She stopped. For a moment, we simply stared at each other across the distance. Then she did something unexpected. She removed her helmet. Her face was not what I expected. Alien, yes, but not monstrous. Her skin shimmered faintly like polished stone, and her eyes glowed a soft, luminous blue. There was something ancient in her expression and something else. Recognition. Human, she said, her voice calm and clear. Lower your weapon. I didn't. Give me one good reason. She tilted her head slightly, as if considering the question. Then she said, because you already defeated me once. My stomach tightened. I knew that voice. Not from words. From memory. Flashes of fire. Screaming metal. The clash of blades. A battlefield lit by burning skies. And her. Fast. Relentless. Unstoppable. Until she wasn't. You, I muttered, lowering the rifle just a fraction. You were there. On Caro's 4. She nodded once. I was. I remembered that battle too well. We had been outnumbered 5-1. Our defenses had collapsed within hours. By the time my unit was deployed, it wasn't a battle anymore. It was a slaughter. And she had been at the center of it. A Kalari war commander, cutting through human lines like they were nothing. Until I found her. Or maybe she found me. I didn't defeat you, I said slowly. I barely survived. You disarmed me, she replied. And you chose not to kill me. The memory hit harder this time. I had her on the ground. My blade at her throat. Her weapon broken. Her armor cracked. She should have been dead. Any other soldier would have finished the job. But I didn't. I never knew why. Maybe I was exhausted. Maybe I was tired of killing. Or maybe something in her eyes stopped me. I remember, I said quietly. She stepped closer. I tensed, but didn't raise the rifle again. You spared me, she said. And in doing so, you broke more than my weapon. I frowned. What does that mean? It means, she said, stopping just a few steps away, that I am here because of you. I let out a dry laugh. If this is some kind of delayed revenge. It is not. Her tone didn't change, but something in it made me stop. She wasn't lying. I came, she continued, to claim you. That got my attention. Excuse me? Her glowing eyes locked onto mine. You are mine, she said simply. I blinked. Yeah, no, I said immediately. That's not how this works. It is for my kind. I rubbed my face with one hand, suddenly very aware of how absurd this situation was. Let me guess, I said. Some kind of warrior code? Yes. Of course it was. Defeat equals ownership, right? I muttered. Not defeat, she corrected. Dominance and mercy. I stared at her. You're serious. I am. I let out a long breath and shook my head. Look, I said. I didn't claim you. I let you live. That's it. For my people, she said. Those are the same. I opened my mouth to argue, then stopped. Because something in her expression told me it wouldn't matter. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was her reality. So what? I said finally. You came all this way to what? Drag me back to your empire? There is no empire, she said. The words hit harder than I expected. What? It fell, she said. As yours nearly did. I hesitated. That made sense. The war hadn't just been brutal, it had been catastrophic. Entire systems had gone dark. Civilizations had collapsed. Still, that doesn't explain why you're here. She took one more step closer. Close enough that I could see the faint fractures in her armor, the scars of battles long past. I came, she said, to fulfill my bond. Bond, yes. I stared at her, waiting for the rest. Instead, she did something I didn't expect. She knelt. Right there in the ash and ruin, a Kalari war commander, one of the most feared warriors in the galaxy, lowered herself to one knee in front of me. My brain stopped working for a second. What are you doing? I am acknowledging you, she said, as the one who claimed me. I didn't. And I am offering myself, she continued, her voice unwavering. I blinked again. I feel like we're skipping several steps here. She looked up at me. For my kind, there are only 2 steps. Which are? Claiming and binding. I frowned. And what exactly does binding involve? She held my gaze. Then she said, I am asking for your hand. Silence. The kind of silence that follows something so unexpected your mind refuses to process it. My hand. I repeated. Yes. As in marriage? Yes. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I started laughing. Not because it was funny. Because it was insane. This has to be a joke, I said, shaking my head. We just ended a war that nearly wiped out both our species, and you show up out of nowhere and propose. It is not a proposal, she said calmly. It is a continuation. A continuation of what? Of what began when you spared me. I stopped laughing. Because she meant it. Every word. You don't even know me, I said. I know enough. Like what? She stood slowly, her movements smooth and deliberate. I know that you chose mercy when you had every reason not to, she said. I know that you faced me without fear, even when I outmatched you. And I know that you are alone. That last part hit harder than I expected. I looked away. Yeah, I said quietly. Well, so are a lot of people. Not like you. I didn't respond, because she was right. My unit was gone. My family gone. Everything I had fought for reduced to ash and memory. And now, with the war over, I didn't even know what I was supposed to do next. Come with me, she said. I looked back at her. Where? Anywhere, she said. We will build something new. I hesitated. This was insane. Everything about this was insane. And yet, what happens if I say no? I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked out over the ruined battlefield. Then I will leave, she said finally. And I will carry this bond alone. I frowned. That doesn't sound very equal. It is not meant to be, she said. It is meant to be honored. I studied her for a long moment. She wasn't forcing me. She wasn't threatening me. She was offering. In her own strange, alien way, she was giving me a choice. And after everything we'd been through, that mattered. Why me? I asked. She met my gaze again. Because you saw me, she said. Not as an enemy, but as something else. I exhaled slowly. I remembered that moment on Caro's 4. The hesitation. The choice. Maybe it hadn't just changed her. Maybe it had changed me too. You realize this is completely crazy, right? I said. Yes. And you're still asking? Yes. I looked around one last time. At the ruins. At the ashes of a war that had taken everything. There was nothing left here for me. Nothing but ghosts. I turned back to her. If I say yes, I said slowly, this isn't ownership. It's partnership. She nodded without hesitation. Yes. And we do this my way too. Yes. I narrowed my eyes. You don't even know what my way is. I will learn. I let out a small, tired laugh. You're really serious about this. I am. I studied her face one last time. Then I made my decision. All right, I said. I'll take the risk. For the first time, something shifted in her expression. Not quite a smile, but close. She extended her hand. I hesitated for only a second, then took it. Her grip was firm, warm, real. And just like that, everything changed. The ship lifted off moments later, leaving the battlefield behind. As the ruins of the old world disappeared beneath us, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not grief. Not anger. Something else. Possibility. I glanced at her as she stood beside me, watching the stars. So, I said, breaking the silence, do I at least get to know your name? She turned to me. Ailira, she said. I nodded. Nice to meet you, Ailira. She tilted her head slightly. Nice to meet you as well. I smirked. You're going to have to work on that. I will. I leaned back against the wall, folding my arms. One more question. Yes. What happens now? She looked out at the endless stars ahead. We build, she said. Build what? She glanced at me. Our future. I followed her gaze, watching as the ship entered the vast unknown. For the first time since the war began, I wasn't afraid of what came next, because whatever it was, I wouldn't be facing it alone.